Good evening, I'm Ann Kiguta, and in exactly one calendar month, more than 14 million Kenyans are expected to stream into polling stations across the country in one of the most historic general elections since independence. This will be the first general election under the new constitution that has radically changed the country's governance structures. And for the first time in the country's history, each voter will be expected to cast up to 6 ballots in one election. And so it is on this 4th day of February that we here at KTN kick off our special election coverage as that date with destiny beckons. This is KTN's Election Center, the groundbreaking news program that will keep a finger firmly on the pulse of the nation as it marches towards the ballot. And tonight we shall be paying close attention to the question that, according to the latest opinion polls, is top on every Kenyan's mind: the high cost of living. And in a short while we will be crossing live to Kakamega. That is one of the counties that is hardest hit by the rising cost of living. KTN's Sophia Wanuna is on standby to paint that picture for us. And we are also live from the Mathare slums, where tough economic times meet with chronic insecurity. Sophia.
Thank you, Ann. We are right in the middle of Kakamega County, the second largest county in Kenya, with a population of about 1.6 million people and growing. Tonight, we highlight the biggest challenge facing residents in this county: the high cost of living. We also bring you the concerns of sugar farmers who are caught in the middle of sugar wars between millers in the county. And will Western Kenya put its vote in one basket in the upcoming election, or will its vote be divided as has been in the years past? We will be talking to an analyst about that. But first, and we take you to our Betty Kiala, who's standing by in Mathare. Betty.
Well, thank you very much, Sophia Wanuna. So passionate about that. Well, I'm here at Mathare slums in the heart of Nairobi. A lot of excitement here. KTN is indeed on location. Tonight, we discussed the high cost of living affecting so many people here in Kenya, and especially people here in Mathare. I'll also be speaking to an analyst who will be able to give us challenges and the difficulties that people here face, but also the solutions and what the aspirants for the next government can look at to make sure that most of these people here in Mathare and every other part in Kenya live in dignity. I'm Betty Kiala. We also have reporters across the country.
In the coast region, the most pertinent issue is land. I am Ferdinand Mondi from Mombasa, and I will be working the land question from all angles in the Election Center.
People in central Kenya have ranked insecurity as one of the key issues affecting them, and they'd like that addressed. Politically speaking, there is the issue of succeeding President Mwai Kibaki, who has been the Member of Parliament for Othaya for the last 38 years. And definitely this is generating a lot of interest, not just in Othaya constituency, but the larger Nyeri County. My name is Carol Nderi, and I will keep you posted as we bring you more.
This region is being branded as a swing region. This is because the Luhya community has never voted in the past election as a bloc to any presidential candidate. I am Aaron Ocheng in the county of Bungoma, and later I'll be giving you the intrigues of Western Kenyan politics.
Well, we should also be getting a global perspective from Johannesburg, where prominent Kenyan scholars will weigh in on our discussion tonight as we focus on what is the priority for all Kenyans: the very high cost of living. But first, the Election Center starts now with a look at our top stories. Three more police officers killed by cattle rustlers in Baringo.
Mimi nimenunua hii plot yangu through hardship. Nimekuwa nikifanya kazi ambazo sio za maana ndio nipate pesa ya kununua hiyo plot.
Houses come tumbling down again in Syokimau demolitions.
Candidates and their parents await with high expectation to see which schools they have been placed into.
Form 1 selection begins in Nairobi. And experts reveal that cancer is not just a disease for the rich. And joining us now live in studio is KTN's Noah Otieno to establish the election agenda. Noah, welcome. What do you have for us?
Thank you, Ann Kiguta. Now, in the election center, KTN has decided to focus on the nation's attention to the issues that matter to the Kenyan voters and the things that get swept under the carpet in the campaigns of the presidential, governorship, senatorship, and even parliamentary aspirants. What is it that they don't want to tell the Kenyan voter? The election center agenda is now on. One of the biggest issues that the election agenda is about is unemployment. Why? Because the latest statistics say 40% of Kenyans are unemployed. The majority of these are the youth. This problem is the catalyst for many other socio-economic and political problems associated with poor, idle, large population. The latest opinion poll from Ipsos Synovet released 2 weeks ago say that 23% of Kenyans are very, very concerned about unemployment. The other big issue in the election center in this election for Kenyans is the high cost of living. Again, the January 20th Ipsos Synovet poll say this is the biggest concern for the Kenyans right now. 30% or 3 in every 10 Kenyans considers the cost of basic commodities and rent and transportation as the biggest concerns of our time, requiring urgent attention in this election of 4th March. Next is crime. This is the 3rd biggest worry for all Kenyan voters, according to the January Ipsos Synovet opinion poll. And with the police service currently in a flux, as some try to resist change, while others raise concerns about lack of funding for police to prepare for the elections, this is a big issue in this election. The Kibaki regime is also leaving the task of dealing with corruption to the incoming government. The government has admitted that the war on corruption has been a difficult one to fight, and the current political candidates are using corruption as a very big campaign platform. But what will they do for corruption in Kenya? This is the 4th biggest concern for Kenyans in this election. The voters have also listed poor leadership as the cause for many of the unfulfilled promises and the decay of the Kenyan moral political fabric. How do the people aspiring to succeed President Kibaki planning to lead this country? And what caliber of leaders do we have in this election? This is our agenda, and KTN has started this project, the Election Center, to bring you the big issues that matter in the election of March 4th, 2013. Anne.
Thank you so much, Noah. And certainly it is an ambitious project to bring back this election centered on what matters to you. Certainly, as we've mentioned just a short while ago, we will be focusing on the high cost of living that has got every Kenyan worried. The latest opinion polls that we have seen place that at the #1 concern from you. So in a short while, we will be speaking, of course, to experts to try to break this down. And again, as you've seen our teams across the country, finding out how this economy has affected you in your pocket. We're calling it the Kadogo economy now. So certainly this issue very important to us. And of course, for the last several months, many politicians have been crisscrossing across the country seeking your vote. Even before the official campaign period began, the question still remains, whose agenda is it that they are indeed pursuing? We want to get a global perspective now on this issue of the high cost of living that has got many Kenyans who are living abroad afraid of coming back home. I am joined now live from Johannesburg, South Africa, by Professor Gilbert Kadiagala. He is the Professor of International Relations and the Head of International Relations at Witwatersrand University. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to begin with this, Professor. Given the kind of climate that we have seen, the economy recorded 4.7% in the last quarter of this particular year, and also the things that we have seen in terms of the tax regime and others, do you feel that Kenya right now offers a good investment climate for Kenyans who are living in the diaspora? Professor, can you hear me? I'm going to repeat that question again for your benefit. 4.7% in the 3rd quarter of this year. We've also seen investments coming in at home quite regularly. The tax regime, is it favorable to Kenyans who are living abroad? Okay, I understand that the professor can't hear me right now. We'll go back to Johannesburg in a short while. Let's catch up with the main news of this day. And tension is high in Baringo County following a brutal attack by cattle rustlers that has left 3 police officers and 3 civilians dead. The Sunday morning incident saw an unknown number of rustlers raid the Ngarutuko village before killing 3 villagers and making away with more than 100 cattle. The attackers are then said to have gunned down 3 police officers who were in their pursuit. 4 people were also injured in that attack, while 1 civilian has been reported missing after that particular incident. Tension was high in Seretion, Kapturo, Chepsikin and Chemoy villages as the Kenya Red Cross personnel and of course other aid workers struggled to access the highly volatile area to collect bodies of victims that have since been taken to the Kabarnet District Hospital mortuary. And it's that very sad story that leads us to tonight's big question. We're asking, do you think the government is committed to ending cattle rustling? Please do send us your yes or no answer to the number 8040. That's with a brief comment, and we will be sampling your responses at the end of this live newscast. Now, several families in Syokimau Estate are spending the night in the cold after their houses were demolished. The affected residents claim the person who sold the land to them had not paid the original owner his dues, hence the standoff. Saida Swale reports.
Just minutes after 7 a.m. Monday, residents of Syokimau area woke up to this. Bulldozers parked outside what was once a serene neighborhood. What these residents once called home, now reduced to debris. According to residents, an eviction order had been issued on the 31st of January through the area district officer. The notice warning of a demolition that would bring down all 32 houses built on this 5-acre piece of land.
Katika 5-acre, order kama ilitolewa kotini ni ya 5-acre. Haikutolewa ya kota. Kwa hivyo hapa kuna unyanyasaji ambao umeendelea. Kwa sababu hizi nyumba zingine zimebaki ambazo ziko kwa the same land.
The Syokimau area has been an area met by cases of same script, different caste, whereby there have been numerous of cases reported on land issues. But as for now, about 15 households have been rendered homeless. Unconfirmed reports suggest that the land was purchased in the year 2000 and subsequently subdivided and sold to the current residents. However, the deal is said to have gone sour, prompting the courts to intervene. An eviction notice followed.
Mimi nimenunua hii ploti yangu through hardship. Nimekuwa nikifanya kazi ambazo sio za maana ndio nipate pesa ya kununua hiyo plot. Mzee wangu amechukua loan kuenda kununua hiyo plot. Tumechanga pesa, tumenunua plot. Tukifikiria tutakaa hapo.
The incident rekindled memories of a similar incident in 2004 when residents of Syokimau suffered forceful demolitions. Saida Swale, KTN.
Well, 119,000 candidates who sat for the 2012 Kenya Certificate of Primary Education will miss Form 1 places in public schools. This even as the number of those joining national schools increased to 16,125 due to the recent upgrading of provincial schools to national schools. Well, Education Minister Mutula Kilonzo made the announcement as he launched the selection of Form 1 students. And as KTN's Angel Katusia now reports, Mutula has promised parents of children in private schools of fairness in the upcoming selection.
A week after the release of the 2012 KCPE results, the Minister of Education will now have to deal with the challenge of Form 1 selection, with all eyes on how the selection would affect candidates from private schools who were not favored in 2011 selection. In 2011, candidates from public schools were allocated more places. Parents of candidates from private schools are hopeful after Education Minister Mutula Kilonzo assured that the selection will not be biased and all candidates will have equal opportunities in the selection to national schools.
National special schools, the ones I've just described, are 20. Candidates selected are 600. representing 0.1%.
Education PS says the process will be fair and that there are more places for candidates in national schools after the ministry upgraded some provincial schools, bringing the total of national schools to 78.
Of increasing the number of Form 1 places from 4,517 in 2011 to this year 16,125.
Form 1 students joining national schools are expected to report their respective schools between the 18th and the 25th of this month. The ministry says Form 1 selection for candidates who will be joining county schools will be on the 7th, while that for those joining district schools will be on the 11th. The minister has also assured parents that there will be no additional school fees in national schools after it emerged that some schools elevated to national schools had hiked fees, making it unaffordable to parents. Angel Katuse, KTN Newsline.
Royal Media Services suffered a big blow when the High Court declined to stop the Communications Commission of Kenya from shutting down its transmitters. Well, this comes after CCK, using a warrant of arrest from the Magistrates Court, shut down 17 transmitters located in various parts of the country. RMS, through its lawyer, its owner, SK Macharia, told the court that he had invested 1.4 billion shillings in its broadcasting, and 1,300 employees on a wage bill of 180 million shillings a month risked losing their jobs. CCK, through its company secretary John Omo, claims that Royal Media Services was operating on illegal frequencies that amounted to taking criminal action against SK Macharia. At the same time, 23 frequencies risk being shut down if Royal Media Services does not obtain an order from the Court of Appeal by the 3rd of March this year. The case will be heard on the 14th of this month. To the campaign trail now, and with just 28 days left before Kenyans go to the polls, the week got off to a busy campaign schedule for different political parties and coalitions. The Cord and Eagle alliances pitched tent in Nyanza, while the Jubilee coalition took its campaign to Kiambu.
A day after launching its manifesto, the Jubilee coalition hit the campaign trail. A team of Jubilee leaders led by Nairobi Metropolitan Development Minister Jamle Kamau took the Jubilee campaign to Uhuru Kenyatta's backyard of Kiambu County. The leaders addressed 5 rallies in Kikuyu, Gatundu, Limuru, Banana and Kiambaa, where they popularized their manifesto.
Wakenya wanataka sio kujua ni nani yako na mashamba kubwa. Wakenya wanataka kujua ile mashamba iko ni nini itafanywa ndiye tuweze kupata mapato zaidi kuliko ile leo.
As Jubilee campaigned in Kiambu, the Cord Alliance was in Kisii and Nyamira counties. The Cord presidential candidate Raila Odinga, his running mate Kalonzo Musyoka and Moses Wetangula led other leaders in addressing campaign rallies across the 2 counties. Raila campaigned in Nyamarambi. Kalonzo Musyoka led another team to Nyamira as Wetangula popularized the coalition in Nyanturago. The leaders later converged for the main rally at the Gusii Stadium.
Sisi wanakoti tunasema we stand for social justice and social equity. Kwamba even our senior citizens aged over 65 years and above watakuwa wakipata marupurupu every end of the month kuanzia June mwaka huu.
Sisi tunaamini yale ambayo tunasema. Kitu muhimu zaidi ni uaminifu. Sema ile ambayo unajua unaweza kutenda. Hapana sema ile ambayo huwezi kutenda.
The Eagles Alliance team was also seeking a share of the Nyamira vote. Presidential candidate Peter Kenneth and his running mate Ronnie Osumba campaigned in Nyamaya, Magwawa, Nyabiosi and Manga areas.
Wananchi wamechoka. Wananchi wamechoka kusoma ni wale. Ni wale tu kutoka historia ya Jamhuri ya Kenya. Kama si hao wanahusika na waliokuwa huko.
Campaigns are expected to pick pace with just 28 days before the general election. Rita Tinina, KTN.
All right, today is February the 4th and it is World Cancer Day, a date that for many holds little significance according to observers due to the lack of knowledge. Well, statistics, however, show that more and more people are coming face to face with the disease, which according to observers is surrounded by myths. Well, to dispel some of those myths, here are some key facts about the disease that may help you to be better armed to fight it or to care for somebody who's affected. Well, cancer, according to the World Health Organization, is the leading cause of death worldwide. This number, contrary to popular belief, is highest in developing countries. Over 70% of all cancer cases globally are reported in developing countries, with 55% of cancer-related deaths occurring in these poor countries too. Well, cancer is not just a disease for the rich, and in 2008, the World Health Organization reported that about 70% of all cancer deaths occurred in low and middle income countries. While there is a lot of emphasis on breast cancer, lung, stomach, liver and colon cancers cause the most cancer-related deaths each year. About 30% of cancer deaths are due to behavioral and dietary risks, which include high body mass index or keeping with an unhealthy weight, low fruit and vegetable intake, a lack of physical activity, tobacco use and alcohol use. Tobacco is the most important risk factor for cancer, causing 22% of the global cancer deaths and 71% of the global lung and cancer deaths. Well, deaths from cancer worldwide are projected to continue rising if the current trends and behavioral risks continue, with an estimated, get this, 13.1 million deaths in the year 2030. Well, for the last several months, politicians have crisscrossed the country seeking your vote even before the official campaign period began. The question, however, is and remains, whose agenda are they pursuing? Tonight, we unveil the program that will focus on nothing other than your agenda. The latest opinion polls list the high cost of living, insecurity, corruption and poor leadership as some of the key concerns in the country. And so tonight we begin now with a global perspective, and for that we are now joined live by KTN's Sophia Wanuna. Sophia, tell us more about this locality where you're at right now, where of course the very high cost of living is impacting negatively on Kenyans there.
Thank you, Anne. In a recent poll released by research firm Ipsos Synovate, respondents said that the biggest problem facing Western Kenya was the high cost of living. Now, the cost of food items, housing and transport are top on the list of items whose prices residents say have skyrocketed in recent years as Kakamaga's population has risen. Experts say this may be indicative of a town whose infrastructure is not quite ready for the influx of people that the county government will bring. KTN's Wilkester Nyabwa now reports.
Kakamega County, population 1.6 million and growing. The population pressure bringing with it its own unique challenges. According to a poll conducted by research firm Ipsos Synovate, the biggest challenge facing the population in Western Kenya is a high cost of living. The face of Kakamega town is changing. Companies have moved to offer their services to a population that is growing rapidly. And as the numbers have risen, so has the cost of living. The prices of commodities such as food have skyrocketed in recent years. This, locals tell us, is in part because most of the food items sold in Kakamega town come from other regions such as Mount Elgon.
Kama Kakamega ni watu, kuna kampuni nyingi za miwa, so watu wengi wanapanda miwa.
We tend to concentrate on growing cereals in Kakamega, and we don't pay a lot of attention to growing the vegetables. Yes, because the only vegetables you'd find at large scale are kitchen gardens. Yet I think we should take advantage of having off-season crops so that we can feed the population in Kakamega with crops that are grown during the dry period.
But this does not explain why housing is so expensive.
The housing system has skyrocketed. We are having houses that users are paying to the tune of 20,000 shillings here in Kakamega.
While many rejoiced when several institutions of higher learning moved to Kakamega town to offer their services to students here, the general feeling is now that these students are driving up the cost of living in Western Kenya.
In 2010, the Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology received its charter, turning it into a fully-fledged university. The university has had a tremendous impact on the growth of Kakamega town and is said to be the driver of economic activities in the area. Students from Masinde Muliro and other universities that have moved to the region have contributed to the demand for transport. Banking services, groceries and accommodation are also on demand. This has given rise to employment opportunities, but the high demand for commodities has also had the effect of driving up the cost of basic supplies.
Hata unaona hii potapota pia sinaongeza bei kwa sababu wao ndio wanafanya sinakuwa nyingi sababu ya university. Hata sisi wenyewe tumekuwa sasa hatutembei sana, wametufanya tumekuwa wafifu, ukipata 50 yako unapanda pikipiki.
The students and staff of the university come to about 12,000 people, while the university has space for just 3,000, meaning the rest must seek accommodation elsewhere. And the rent is not cheap.
When I came here, I was told we have no rooms. I didn't expect that. I had paid the money in the bank, only to arrive here and then I'm being told there are no rooms, search for rooms. Then when going outside the school, I'm finding the cheapest house is 8,000. Imagine you don't have anything, it's 8,000, you pay, you get in. You don't have it, it's upon you.
5 years ago, this town, as everybody knows, was a sleeping town. Reason being, we did not have many people coming from outside Kakamega. Most people who are in this town were from the neighboring communities. But now, as a result of the new development that is around in this town, people coming to invest, definitely they are coming to invest and employing people to work. And everybody who is employed must find a house.
With Kakamega town now poised to become a county headquarters, fears abound the infrastructure will not be able to support the number of people who shall flock to the town in search of opportunities, and that the high demand for limited supplies shall only drive the cost of living higher. Wilkes Nabwa, KTN in Kakamega.
Thank you, Wilkester, for that report. Now, before we have a look at the raging wars between sugar millers in this region, I take you back to a news center where Ann Kiguta is standing by. Ann.
Sophia, thank you for that. Let's now cross over to Johannesburg, South Africa, where Professor Gilbert Kadiagala, he is a professor of international relations and the head of the International Relations Department at the University of Witwatersrand. Thank you so much for joining us. Professor, let's begin with this. What are the expectations of Kenyans living in the diaspora ahead of the March 4th vote?
My name is Gilbert Kadiagala. I'm a professor of international relations at the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. I'm one of the Kenyans in the diaspora. We are wishing the Kenyans a very happy new year, but we're also wishing that there will be peaceful elections this year. We are very optimistic about our country, particularly given our history, and so we are very excited that the elections are going to be held in March as organized, and we are also very happy to be participating in following what is happening at home. Generally, Kenyans in South Africa are very optimistic about our country, about our economy, but also about the kind of resilience as a country that we've held over the years. We've had a lot of problems, but I think we can surmount these problems, and that is really the message from Johannesburg, where people are hoping that everything will work very well and will go very well. South Africans are generally very optimistic about Kenya because Kenya is a leading country in Eastern Africa and in Africa as a whole. So if that country goes down the drain, the entire region goes down the drain. It is our expectation as Kenyans in the diaspora that our country will stand tall and it will shame those doomsdayers who think that in fact we cannot organize our affairs as reasonable men and women. So this is really the message that I want to impart from Johannesburg about the optimism we, the diasporans in South Africa, have about our country. And I'm wishing you all the best.
Thanks very much. That's Professor Kadiagala from Johannesburg. And of course, he comes from where Sophia Wanuna is standing by. He was giving us the global perspective of Kenya's election. Let's go to the people's agenda in Kakamega with Sophia. Back to you.
Thank you, Anne. Now, the presence of Mumia Sugar Company, West Kenya Sugar Company and Butali Sugar Company in Kakamega County makes it a region that produces the bulk of Kenya's sugar. And here in Kakamega, the sugar industry contributes significantly to the county's economy. But the raging wars between sugar millers in the region threatens to destabilize the sector, leaving sugar farmers disgruntled. Let's take a listen on what some had to say.
Changamoto ya miwa hapa Western ni nyingi sana. Kienda upande wa West Kenya, nitaanza na ile harvest sasa. Unajua tukisha harvest miwa, kuna products nyingi zile zinatoka kwa miwa. Kuna wakati wanatulipa ton, wanalipa as per the miwa. Lakini tunasikia kwamba zile products kuna molasses, ile inatoka kwa miwa, kuna zile maganda yake, ina faida yake. Alafu pia unapata ya kwamba kila chochote kile kinatoka product kwa miwa, unapata ya kwamba hizo vitu zote ziko na faida, lakini nao wanatulipa tani. Unaweza pata we mwenyewe mkulima wakitoa miwa kwa shamba, unaona kama inaweza kuwa tuseme ya kwamba tani 10, lakini ukienda kunaambia ni 3.5.
Unalima shamba, unanunua mbegu, alafu ukipanda, ukienda hapo kwa factory, wakupee permit ukate, uende ulipie mtoto school fees, alafu anakunyanyasa tu namna hivi, wakupee permit haraka.
Sasa kupanda miwa hausaidiwi kulingana na input zake. Unatafuta input na kampuni haikusaidii. Alafu ukikata miwa yako inaweza shinda kwa shamba more than 2 days, kupepa inakuwa ni shida mpaka ukucha kwa kampuni.
Kwa mfano ya kulima tuko hesabu ya kusema sisi walimaji wa miwa, lakini faida kwa miwa mimi naona ni ndogo.
Truckloads of sugarcane arriving here at the West Kenya Sugar Company, one of the 3 sugar companies here in Kakamega County that have been embroiled in supremacy battles.
Unajua mali penye msikiana hako, lazima kila mtu angangania. Miwa ilikuwa kidogo, kampuni ya West Kenya inataka, Umiasi inataka.
Saa ingine wanatunyang'anya hata matinga zinakaa huko kwao. Wanataka tu West ipepe soni yao na Mumias ipepe huko, lakini sasa ni soko huru.
Miasi kuna mia ukweli, na hao wakulima wa miasi wanapenda kuleta hapa West Kenya miwa, na miasi nao kampuni naye haitaki kuleta huko miwa, au viongozi wa kampuni. Na West naye kulingana na bila wakulima wa miasi wanataka kuleta huko miwa kulingana kupata kwa pesa.
All right, and a quick mention, another economic activity in Kakamega County is gold mining. It was started by a British company, Rosterman Gold Mines, in 1935. This company would close down in 1952 after mining gold worth an estimated 4 billion shillings. Experts, however, believe that there are still huge deposits of gold buried beneath the rocks, a belief that keeps local residents digging day after day, hoping to strike it rich eventually. But now we discuss more about the high cost of living here in Kakamega County, as well as that story you've just had there earlier about the sugarcane wars in this county. And I'm joined by Veronica Kiluva, who is a lecturer at the Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology. You've heard what those farmers, sugar farmers there, had to say, disgruntled, of course, by what is going on in the sugar industry. And of course the wars, and we've seen the battles between the sugar farms and what has been going on between them, fighting for supremacy and each wanting to have zones, some want free markets. What is the solution? 1, for the sugar farmers, and 2, what needs to be done to resolve these wars between the major sugar industries in this region?
Thank you for your question. I believe that definitely we need a bottom-up approach into handling issues of the sugar farming, so that the farmers are fully involved from the grassroots. We also need intensive cane research so that we can inform policy, and this policy should be fully implemented to the letter by these companies. We know that the companies need to be able to pick all the laws that this research will come up with and implement and ensure that everything is followed up to the letter, and the farmers are fully involved in everything that they do. Thank you.
Okay, now Kakamega town is set to be the headquarters for Kakamega County, and of course, as we've heard from that report, high cost of living, very high. Is it going to be able to sustain itself as a headquarters, or will that being made a headquarter drive the cost of living even higher? Will the situation get out of control, or can it sustain itself as a headquarters for this county?
We appreciate the fact that Kakamega is already a headquarters of Kakamega County. What we need to do is actually to intensify the investor confidence. We need investors to come to Kakamega, invest in the building sector, invest in the food production sector, so that we can be able to have a 12-month food production. We make use of the dry period when the farming is not being done in Kakamega. We can do irrigation. We have a whole amount of rainfall that pours for over 6 months in Kakamega. If we can harvest this rainfall and irrigate crops during the dry spell, we can comfortably feed this county and also export possibly to be able to have some money in surplus.
Most of the residents we spoke to are convinced that the students in Masenda Muliro and of course the other universities that have set camp here in Kakamega have driven the influx of population in this region. Is that correct? Is that why there's so many people in Kakamega, the students, or are there other factors?
I want to take population coming to Kakamega on a positive note. I want to say that it is the population that is going to drive the economy of Kakamega. What we need to do is actually sensitize investors to come to Kakamega, take charge of the growth of population, and take care of all the basic living standards that we need in Kakamega. Yes. We need just to be able to appreciate the fact that we have to grow. We are growing globally, not just as a county. So we want to say that all universities, all investors are welcome to Kakamega, and that's how we can be able to grow.
All right, very quickly, Kakamega, as we've heard from Ilkista Nyabo's story earlier, is getting a lot of its food from Mount Elgon and elsewhere. Why is it not also focusing on producing its own food?
I want to appreciate the fact that every community in Kenya has the indigenous crop.
Right.
In Kakamega, we like using ugali. And that is why we grow a lot of ugali and tend not to pay attention to the vegetable growing. Right. And that is why I'm talking about rainwater harvesting, so that we can be able to use that rainwater to irrigate crops during the off-season. So I believe it's an attitude that we can change as people in Kakamega and be able to embrace the cultivation of other crops just besides cereals.
All right, and finally, before we hand over to Ann Kiguta, one last question. With the coming of the devolved system of government, of course, with a March 4th general election, is that going to help the situation in Kakamega? Or do you see it being a plus for Kakamega, or will things become even more hazardous here in the county? Is it a good thing? How will it improve the county?
I want to have a very great anticipation for the Kakamega County. It's a county that we can do a lot of research and be able to unearth that is not known. The research can inform us a lot. Then we come up with policies that we're going to use in the county to implement and be able to meet our basic needs. So I believe and I trust that the growth of this county and the changing of it from the earlier status to a new status is very important for us. We'll be thinking more global than just regional.
Madam Kiluva, thank you very much for joining us here on location in Kakamega County. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Indeed, as we said, we are coming to you live from Kakamega County. We still have more. We promised we'd talk about the politics of this region. Aaron Ocheng has prepared a report for us, but that will come later on in this broadcast. For now, our Betty Kialo is standing by in Mathare. Over to you, Betty.
Thank you very much, Sophia, for that detailed and very incisive report. Also, we're still here at Mathare, at the heart of Nairobi. And also, as I promised, we have our policy analyst, Mr. Karethi Murimi. Thank you so much for coming. Of course, we'll be discussing issues to do with the high cost of living that is affecting so many people, and especially here in the slum of Mathare. We'll be talking about all these issues, challenges, and what exactly can be done to just make sure that poverty here is not the main issue that we talk about. We'll be giving you those details. Catherine Omantho is also is standing by with a report that she prepared earlier when she talked to residents here, just asking how life is here, and of course so much more. Welcome back to Choice 2013. We got you covered in terms of election coverage, and today we're coming to you straight from Mathare slums here in Nairobi, and we're looking at the issues that are affecting these people and of course so many other Kenyans across the country. One of the issues being the high cost of living. This place is home to about 400 to say 600,000 people, of whom who face a lot of issues. Let's talk about insecurity, poverty, and a lot of other issues that we'll be discussing on. And joining me is our policy analyst, Karethi Murimi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
This is definitely not your first time to come to Mathare slums.
Yes, I've been here before.
Exactly. Looking at all these children who are so excited that KTN is on location, is there hope for them? Just to start us off.
The answer is yes. And the answer is yes because we now have a new thinking, which is sitting in what we call the economic and social rights, which are part of Article 43 of our Constitution, which promises what we call decent houses. It promises clean water. So we expect the new government that is coming in to obey the spirit of Article 43 and the budget in a way that we uplift what we call the ROA to come to the mid-row with the objective, of course, of bringing them at the top.
All right, thank you very much. There's so many manifestos that have been launched by different coalitions, and we'll be taking a look at how they are going to have an effect on these people and, of course, so many other Kenyans. That in just a bit. But first, let's move on to Catherine Omantho, who's standing by to tell us more about what she found out here in Mathare.
Thank you, Betty. Now, what we found out is that the average meal, a Kenyan will have an average meal of probably ugali, beef, and kales. And this costs about 510 shillings. That's because a 2 kg packet of maize flour costs about 120. A kg of beef costs about 360. And a batch of kales costs 30 shillings. And this is too much for the average Kenyan to spend every day for just one meal out of the 3 meals that they should have. So what we found out in Mathare is that instead of buying the ingredients to make a meal, Kenyans are opting to buy ready-made food. And this obviously costs less. And this because it doesn't include the cost that you will use to cook the food, or the cost that you will use to, to basically feed your family. So that's what we found out in Mathare, and here's what we had.
Mimi nilikuja hapa Nairobi, hiyo miaka 2 imepita. Sasa niliamua tu kupika chapati. Juu nilijaribu kazi ya asili ilinishinda. Naenda unashinda kwa jua, nikaona tu hapana. Nianze tu kazi yangu.
27-year-old Diana Tieno prepares another batch of chapatis in Mathare. She has used 1 packet of flour that has cost...
Will this change?
The key thing is first to agree that for you to change what we currently are looking at, which is poverty in front of us, you need to rethink the whole Kenya. You can't do it one way, either looking at only the house. You need to look at the total. For example, any indicator called a slum indicates the level of pay that generally you pay your workers. So the affordability in terms of either a house, either in terms of food, is a reflection on what we call the salary structure of the country. So one of the bigger areas that this country needs to address and address very urgently is the efficiency factors. For example, how much we pay for inefficiency in the port of Mombasa is indicative of the per kilo price of maize, 500 gram of bread. So if you remove inefficiency in the port of Mombasa, within what we call the cost of inefficiency, you'd reduce the price of bread by almost 3 bob. So the fundamentals of addressing poverty is partly unlocking what you call the way we manage our state corporations.
Okay.
Especially the ones which have a direct bearing on what we call the food chain. And the port of Mombasa is one of those bigger indicators. The other area is, of course, starting to ask, where was the origin of the word Mathare? Where was the origin of the word Kibera? And all the other slums that we talk about? And the answer is in the location of the industries. The way the industries were located generated the need of the workforce. So part of the what we call the growth in the slums is an industry structure. Now currently we haven't negotiated what we call the price of labor vis-a-vis the food relationship. We tend to mix the two. So in one side we are discussing the cost of food, and on the other side we are discussing good pay.
All right.
We need a relationship of both.
All right. Is it in any way related to if you pay your workers, if you underpay your workers, this is the result? Are we going to go back to the salary structures and change them and see that their livelihoods improve?
What we need to do is to go to the fundamental. The fundamental is, if your economy has 46% poor people, what you are saying is that population cannot afford purchasing, is not participating in purchasing.
Yes.
So what you need is to deconstruct that 46 by bringing schemes which first lower the 46 to about 20%. What that will do is it will increase the population that can afford. Then you go to what we call incentives of funding poverty-related concepts.
Okay.
For example, if you are putting houses for the poor, what type of incentives can you give those investors so that the rent is not too high, but the house becomes decent?
Indeed, that's very true. And looking at what's currently happening, very many coalitions and parties are coming out and launching their manifestos. A lot of promises, very flamboyant strategies and plans that they're looking to putting in place. Have you seen or analyzed anything that is going to be directly linked to these people and really Kenyans generally into making their livelihoods much better?
One needs to be careful when looking at what we call the party manifestos, because most of the issues which we are discussing, the Kenyan as a population over-discussed them, and they are sitting in the constitution. So what I want the parties to think through is, if the constitution says you are entitled to a decent house, how will you give that? Now that is not yet answered by the manifestos, because what we have is a slogan, we will encourage building of houses. But how the house will be affordable is an issue that needs to be discussed.
Okay.
The challenge Kenya is basically sitting on is that we got independence in 1963. That 1963, we inherited some British legal system. We inherited a British bureaucracy structure. This country needs to wake up to the reality that you are now in 2013. You have 40 million mouths to feed. What should this Kenya look like? That question will require more than what we are calling manifestos. It will require you asking, if I want a child in Mathare to access education equal to alliance. How much content of alliance can I put in the net so that when I give them availability of the net through a government-funded internet system, they are able to access alliance material inside the cybers within Mathare.
Okay.
Now that thinking is not the same as saying I will give a school for every area, because some of those promises are not achievable.
Okay. Another promise that we've seen in the manifestos is that we'll give the youth loans without interest. We'll give women funds. Will that really help the situation? Will it make a difference?
You can give the youth the funds. You can give women the funds. But you need to ask, where is the market for what they will do? In areas like where we are sitting, you can have a bread making factory within this particular area. If you go to Rwanda, most of their bread factories are in the slums.
Okay.
So that the slum people are aided by giving them ability to make some of the things that go to feeding that population.
Okay.
They then work with what we call a scheme of supplying them with flour, which is subsidized by government. And remember, there was that thinking immediately after the NAC government came in, when they attempted to subsidize what they were calling a raw packet flour. Now, what we need to think through is, if I'm sitting inside Mathare, the price of a packet of milk includes the packet price. Can you be able to bring what we call tankers of milk, so that I go to buy milk like I'm buying water from a tap?
Yes, not packaged.
The price of that milk will come down by almost 30%. These are the thinkings that you need to now start asking yourself.
Okay.
The youth of those areas can then run those milk bars. Within what we call, the milk comes into a tanker. The tanker is the one you keep on changing as you supply that milk.
Okay.
So the price of the milk for that population then substantively goes down.
All right.
Then when you come to things like writing, when you talk of rural electrification, Nairobi seems not to be captured under the word rural. So you need to start asking yourself, is there a rural element within your cities? So what the Kenyans need to start understanding is within the spirit of the implementing of the Constitution, we have now an Urban and Cities Act. That Urban and Cities Act will bring in a city manager. The city manager will be competitively recruited. It's not the governor who will be directly running there. So you need to start asking, what do Nairobians want that city manager to do for them as a CEO of the cities?
All right. All right. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but of course we'll get your thoughts in yet another setup. But thank you very much for your time. We have been speaking to Kareithi Murimi, a policy analyst, about the solutions that aspirants who are vying for any political seats could actually adopt just to see and ensure that Kenyans do not continue living under the poverty line. We have been here in Mathare slums in the heart of Nairobi, bringing you the issues that affect these people and of course so many others across the country. I'm Betty Callow, back to you, studio.
Thanks very much, Betty. And the election center continues. The counties of Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia and Bungoma have seen presidential candidates campaign extensively in the region that many still believe has the biggest number of undecided votes. One presidential aspirant, Musalia Mudavadi, is from this region and faces a huge task to convince the region to rally behind him. Our senior reporter, Aaron Ocheng, takes a look at the politics of the region.
According to the latest census report, the Luhya community is the second most populous tribe in Kenya and automatically makes them extremely relevant when political questions are drawn. But despite their numerical advantage, the community that resides in the counties of Kakamega, Busia, Vihiga and Bungoma have never deposited their votes in one basket as compared to other communities. This has made the region politically vulnerable to outsiders who find it easier to solicit for Luhya votes, who history has proven that the region is politically divided. Next month's general election will be an acid test for the region, which most believe still holds most of the undecided voters and has so far seen most presidential aspirants extensively campaign in the region.
I think it's for historical. If you look at the history of the Western Kenya, there's never been a single election in Kenya where all the Luyas have voted in one pattern.
Kakamega County will be one area to watch as two political heavyweights, Soita Shitanda and Wycliffe Oparanya, will come head-to-head in the gubernatorial race.
I've been running a ministry that has a budget of 5 billion shillings. I've run it for 8 years, and I've been able to do a few things, not just in Kakamega County, but in most of our urban areas. I know very well about slums. I've been trying to do it. You can see I had even started the program in Kibera.
I can assure you that they are in for a shock. We are also prepared as a party, and I'm happy we have very good people, very strong leaders who have been nominated in various capacities, from county rep, MPs, and even the senator and the women rep. We have a very strong team. It's only time that will tell.
The Senate seat will pit Ikolomani Member of Parliament Boni Khalwale and his Lugari counterpart Cyrus Jirongo. In the neighboring Busia County, former Attorney General Amos Swako will face off with Chris Okemo. Bungoma County will see an epic battle in the senatorial race between Court Principal Moses Wetangula and UDF's Muhisa Kitui. In Vihiga County, Moses Akaranga will be going for the governor's seat, while George Haniri will try his luck in the Senate seat. Away from the aspirants, residents of this area will be hoping to change the perception of the area as a politically divided region when they go to the polls. Aaron Ocheng, KTN, Kakamega.
Now, Western Kenya is a major battle zone for the main contenders in this election. But even within the region itself, the 4 counties of Western Kenya are set for some very interesting political contests in the March 4th general election. Now, remember that this is the region where the Amani presidential candidate, Musalia Mudavadi, comes from. For example, now, in... Are you still with me? Now, in the contest in Western Kenya, for example, there are some very, very critical races that are shaping up in the March 4th general election. Look at this. The race to the Senate in, for example, is pitting big names, among them Musikari Kombo of New Ford, Kenya, and Dr. Mukisa Kitui of UDF. Both of them former cabinet ministers. Trade Minister Moses Wetangula is the other contender in the Bungoma Senate race. He is the chairman of Ford Kenya, which is a partner in the CORD coalition. In Kakamega, a hot battle for the Senate as well, with big names such as the bullfighter Boni Khalwale of UDF, Cyrus Jirongo of Federal Party of Kenya, and Sheyisa Kasiani of ODM. Another tough race is that of the Kakamega governors, pitting Housing Minister Soita Shitanda, now of the New Ford Kenya Party, against the Planning Minister Wycliffe Oparanya of ODM and former Provincial Commissioner Paul Orlando of UDF. The next critical contest in Busia has familiar names as well. The race for Busia senatorship is pitting former Attorney General Amos Swako against former Finance Minister Chris Okemo. That is one to watch. Now, the Ipsos Synovate poll of January this year says the biggest concern for Western Kenya, among the Western Kenya voters, is that of the cost of living. They are at number 1 with up to 44% of the Western Kenya voters saying this is their election issue. The number 2 biggest concern for Western Kenya is the unemployment, with at least 19% of the people there saying leaders must deal with this issue. What about their political behavior? In 1997, the majority of Western Kenya voted for Michael Kijana Wamalwa, who got 48% of the vote in the presidential race. 45% voted for the then president Daniel Arap Moi, while Raila Odinga got only 1.9%. In 2002, the NAC coalition of Raila Odinga, Kibaki and others got the lion's share, with Kibaki getting 61% of the vote, while Uhuru Kenyatta of KANU only got 30%. And in the last election in 2007, Raila scooped 66% of Western Kenya, while Kibaki got 32%. Now, the search for, they say that in Western Kenya, you have not bagged that region until the last vote is counted. I will now take you again to Western Kenya, where Sophia Wanuna is standing by. Sophia. Oh, Joe Ageo is ready in Studio B with one of our political analysts who is going to put all these matters, all these political issues of the Western region into perspective. Joe?
All right, thank you very much, Noah. That's Noah Tieno, bringing us up to speed with some of the statistics that we know about Western Kenya. And we are going to discuss those statistics now, plus all the other political issues in Bungoma, Kakamega, Vihiga, Busia. These are interesting places, and some people actually have characterized them as some of the battleground or swing counties. And joining me in studio this evening to discuss this is Dr. Edward Kisiangani, who is one of our in-house analysts here, and is a lecturer at Kenyatta University, a lecturer of political economy. Also joining us is engineer Vincent Sidai, Hudai Mutu, that's what you were telling me. Sidai is an aspiring governor of Busia County, and we are going to discuss some of the issues that he must deal with should he get elected. And gentlemen, cost of living. Why are people in Western Kenya, in all the 4 counties, according to many opinion polls in recent past, concerned about the rising cost of living? What's happening? Aspiring governor, surely you must know what the problem is down there.
Thank you, Joe. I think the problem is generally poverty. There's a lot of poverty. And this poverty can be attributed to so many factors. Illiteracy level, poor leadership, so many other issues.
Poor leadership, you mean? That is interesting. Professor Kisiangani, do you believe that there's a leadership problem in Western Kenya generally?
Yes, there has been a big leadership problem that goes back several decades ago. And a lot of people have been looking at leadership as a basis for getting handouts, financial handouts. They have not been able to be creative enough to diversify their economic activities. They depend on maize, sometimes sugarcane, and that is all. And they look at leaders as people, as banks who should give them money. And when the leaders come, they take advantage. They give them a few shillings, and then disappear to Nairobi, and they'll come back to ask for votes later, because that is how the voters view them.
Well, right now the region has a presidential candidate in the name of Musalia Mudavadi, who styles himself as they like to say, a safe pair of hands. Do you think that is something that the region should be comfortable about, and saying, well, now we are heading to some place where we might address the leadership question?
I think you can say that. I don't know what he means by safe pair of hands. But
well, we have a UDF.
Probably you'll explain to us what that means. I think the bottom line is that even when we have him as a presidential candidate, he has, over the years, he joined parliament in 1989, late 80s, and he has been there all this time except for the break in 2002 to 2003 election. But he has never cultivated a chemistry that will be felt in Western Province, for example, while he served as a minister from Vihiga to Bungoma to Busia.
I surely don't agree with Professor here, because you'll agree with me that all these presidential candidates that we are having today have been there all this time. They have been there.
Well, your presidential candidate has been there in some form or another, isn't it?
Yes, he has also been there.
Yes,
so
these others, vice president, albeit for just 3 months.
I think, Joe, what the question you should be asking engineer, because I realize he's a UDF governor, is to ask him that I'm sure that when Honorable Musalia Mudavadi decides he wants to run for president, he recognizes there are a number of problems he wants to deal with, and probably he thinks that he will deal with those problems better when he becomes president than when he's probably an MP or a deputy prime minister. But he needs also to explain to the community what efforts he has made since 1989 up to now, what efforts he has made to deal with some of these problems across the board, and whether, of course, he knows these problems exist.
I want to move to other issues shortly. Maybe you would have 30 seconds for fairness to respond to what he's saying about your presidential candidate, that he doesn't seem to have the issues of the region at his fingertips. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree. One, let me take you back where you're saying that a safe pair of hands. Today you will agree with me that this country is so much polarized, in our own tribal cocoons. So we are bringing in somebody here who says that I don't want to be viewed as a tribal king or chief. I'm coming here as a Kenyan to unite all Kenyans. Yeah. The Right Honorable Prime Minister was in elections the last election as presidential candidate, and part of the issues that arose, that's still very fresh in some people's mind.
Let's talk about
But the question is that I just want to finish. I want to finish that topic. Then you get now what he's talking about. That he doesn't seem to understand the issues. I don't agree with that. He understands the issues. What Professor's not seen here is our manifesto of UDF, and see what are the issues that Mudavadi is going to address.
So what are the issues he's going to address for Western Kenya in particular, because that is the area that we are focusing on this particular time, because we have singled out the rising cost of living as a key concern in that region. Does he have a plan, now that you seem to have a sneak preview into that manifesto we haven't seen?
No, okay. My take is very simple here, is that, one, I've told you that there's a lot of poverty in Western Kenya, and part of the contributing factors on this is the literacy level of the people. That's why they are being cheated politically, the way Professor is saying, that people come in and give them some handouts and then they vote.
Do you believe that region is a swing region? It is a battleground region. Do you believe that there is a serious political contest going on in the 4 counties in what was generally known as Western Province?
Yes, Western Province from time immemorial has been a swing vote, okay? But this time round, I don't think so.
Let me ask.
Prof, is Western region a swing battleground region? Because it says it has been, now it is not, probably because Musalia is running.
I think if you look at the patterns and the scientific analysis of the voting in Western Province, of course, most politicians will ignore that, is the fact that probably CORD would likely get slightly more people in terms of percentages than any other candidate. But you see, so it doesn't really have a big contest in terms of deciding who comes there. But I think we shouldn't forget the bigger question that we are raising, the issue of issues that have affected our people in Western Province. The bigger question to ask is, when you say you are a safe pair of hands, how does that solve the poverty problem of the people who Western staying at Kamukuywa, Kimilili, or even places like Emuhaya? That village has a problem of water, it has problems of good health. Do you want a mother from that area in Nakalira village, Kamukuywa, Kimilili, Tongareni, to vote for Musalia Mudavadi because he's a safe pair of hands, or because Musalia is going to bring water to make sure there is a good infrastructure, to make sure that there is security in the village? If the reason for which he wants to be voted is...
With that, engineer, why is it that we have seen this many problems, and when it comes to politics, then it is always very uncertain? Like you say, everybody rushes there and say this is a swing region, and everybody uses it to kind of fill in their baskets. What exactly is the political psyche that is evident in Western Kenya?
Western Kenya people are a bit unique because they don't believe in these tribal alliances, and they make their decisions using their own intelligence, the way they feel. You will find that since this multi-party came up, people in Western Kenya have always voted to all these parties. In 1992, people voted for Matiba, at the same time voted for Moi, then came in
But isn't that because Martin Shikuku, who comes from there, was in Fort Asili? I mean,
I don't think
somehow
so.
they still followed
Not
him.
necessarily.
And when he left Fort Asili,
Not necessarily. Look at the last elections. There was Raila here and there is Kibaki on the other side. But the people of Western Kenya voted for these two candidates almost equally, although the ODM carried the day in Western Kenya, but none of these two candidates come from Western Kenya.
Well, Musalia was the running mate at the time, right? And there were other people.
Exactly, but now, despite the fact that Musalia was a running mate and ODM carrying the day, but still PNU equally got votes.
I think the problem there, Joe, is about the focus of these Western provincial leaders, the region's leaders. Always in every election, some of the leading politicians from the area get it wrong. They don't have a proper attachment with the people, and therefore they interpret the people's feelings differently and often wrong, and that's how the voting patterns get split. Except for very rare occasions like in 2003 when Michael Wamalwa seemed to understand the heartbeat of Western Province. That's when they seemed to vote as a bloc because he understood them. But other than that, they have had a problem. In the recent past, you saw a lot of presidential candidates. Now we have remained with one presidential candidate. If you ask the Western people, they seem everywhere you go. And as a scholar, I go out and I talk to people. They will tell you, Joe, that in our voting, they talk in mother tongue and say they are going to the lake. And they have even told you have heard, how are you going to vote? They say we are going to the lake. It seems inside their heart, they think that when they talk about the lake, that is a euphemism for voting for Raila Odinga. Now, when you see other people, political parties also coming in Western, and like, you know, his UDF, their campaign tool being vote for our own, that does not resonate well with the issues that really affect Western Province. You do not want to vote for a presidential candidate because he's your own, but you want to vote for a presidential candidate because he can make a difference in your own life and the lives of the rest of the Kenyans. This is what they don't have.
Engineer Sedai, beyond these presidential politics, I mean, at the end of the day, people down there want things to change. And someone like yourself who's running for governor surely should know one or two things that need to be done locally, independent perhaps of the political, high voltage politics at the presidential level. What are those things that can be done at your level to ensure that the lot of the ordinary Kenyan there in Western actually changes?
Yes, there's a lot that we can actually do at my level today, because first of all, let's appreciate that Western Kenya is rich agriculturally. Okay, and there's a lot that we produce. People produce sugarcane, people produce maize, there's cotton, there is the simsim, groundnuts. There's a lot that people can produce. But what we need actually is value addition to these products. Get markets for these products. For
all right. Thank you very much, Engineer Sedai. They're making a pitch. Actually, he's running for a governor in Busia County. But we have to go back to Western Kenya, and that is Kakamega County, where our own Sophia Wanuna is standing by with the rest of what's happening there. Sophia, over to you.
Thank you, Joy Gayer. Now, with just 27 days to go to the general election, political temperatures are an all-time high, with those seeking elective positions, including the highest office in the land, traversing Western Kenya on a vote hunt. But what problems do the electorate here in Kakamega want addressed, and what kind of leaders are they going to vote in on the March 4th election? Here is what some of them had to say on our Quote My Vote segment.
Shida za Kakamega hasa ni upande wa barabara ambazo tunakabili, upande wa mahospitali ambazo pia tunapata shida, alafu upande wa umaskini, yani upande wa chakula, maneno ya miwa.
Sisi tulijengewa soko hapa Kakamega, lakini hakuna kuingia. Tunaambiwa tulipe pesa kiasi fulani ndipo tuingie.
Muliro tuko nayo, lakini hata ukienda hapo Muliro utapata watu wengi kutoka Central, wengine kutoka Northeastern, lakini watu wetu hapo ni wachache sana hapo Muliro. Unajua sasa wachakundua mambo ya elimu sana. Pato tungali na isle mila za kitambo. watoto kama wasichana. Msichana akimaliza class 8 unapata ameoleka.
Hatuna kazi ingine. Kazi yenye tumeona hapo Muhindi amekuwekea kazi ya kuweka mio kwa trailer. Ni kweli, kusema kweli tunaumia sana.
Saa hii tunaangalia sera za mtu. Tunataka kiongozi yule aangalie sisi wale watu tuko pale grassroots, especially sisi wakulima wa miwa, atusaidie, atuimarisha maisha yetu.
Anafaa kiongozi ajue, anaweza panga ikolomani ikueje, anaweza panga lugari, angalie ajue shida ya wananchi hasa kwa kila area ni nini.
Mimi hata mafikiri yangu sitaki kupiga kura mwaka huu. Kwa maana hata watu tunapeleka watu kwa huko lakini hakuna usaidizi.
We want something different. We don't want just people to talk. We want actions. We want somebody who can stand for our country, who can protect our territories. For instance, recently we have had problems with Migingo. We want somebody who will be strong, whom another president will look at and say, look at this, I cannot move to this territory.
We hope those aspiring to hold political or public office have heard what the people of Kakamega County expect from them. On that note, to wrap up our coverage from here in Kakamega County, on behalf of the entire team that made this broadcast possible, thank you very much for joining us, and we head out to Kisumu.
Welcome back. You're still on the Election Center. We've got your business news. The search for a new chief executive for the Capital Markets Authority has taken a new twist, with the acting CEO Paul Mudhaura's name being thrown into the fray. Finance Minister Njeru Githai has ordered the regulator's board to interview Mr. Mudhaura for the position, even though he was not shortlisted in earlier interviews by the same board.
Finance Minister Njeru Githai is set to appoint the new chief executive of the Capital Markets Authority this week, ending months of anxiety and speculation that had engulfed the investing fraternity. In what appears to be the turning point to the impasse that has threatened the stability of the local capital markets, the minister has hinted at picking the new CMA chief from the list that he had earlier rejected. But to do this, the minister insists that the current acting managing director, Paul Mudhaura, be interviewed and scored against the three.
They have given me now 3 options. One, I give them 6 months to do another advertisement and interview and shortlist. They have also said I can also look at the 3 nominees they had given. I could also take my pick from there. They have also said that they can also not really re-advertising, but they can also update the people who had applied to find out whether they are still interested. And maybe among those nominees, maybe some have already gone or found greener pastures, so they may not be interested. They've also said that they could also interview the current acting MD and find out where would he rank among the ones who had done the interview.
Treasury had initially toyed with the idea of either giving the CMA board 6 more months to conduct fresh recruitment process or pick one candidate from the previous list of 3 nominees. The standoff between Treasury and the CMA had raised eyebrows over intentions by both sides of fixing their preferred candidate at the helm of the authority. Treasury had rejected the 3 candidates, namely Wanjiku Mugane, Rose Lumumba and Paul Mwai, claiming that none of them had met the minimum requirements for the office. Michael Karanja, KTN Business Today.
And now for a look at more business that made headlines in the corporate world. That report should be coming up in a short while. Here we go.
Jubilee Insurance and Bupa International have launched a strategic partnership to target the growing number of top-level executive, high-end market and expatriates living in the region. Under the partnership, Jubilee Insurance will provide Bupa's international healthcare policies in the market alongside its existing products through a selection of its distribution channel of brokers, agents and on direct basis. Elsewhere, listed mobile network service operator Safaricom Limited has graduated 226 members of staff for having attained E-Class certification in various disciplines. A further 32 employees were also honored for attaining Prince 2 project management practitioners qualifications. The operator says it has invested in education for its over 3,000 employees as a way of keeping them abreast with the market needs and also for motivating them. Finally, state-owned National Oil Corporation plans to start gathering data on its exploration block in the northwestern Kenya. The state firm is seeking international prospectors to acquire the two-dimension seismic data on 400 kilometers in Block 14T. The block lies to the south of Block 10BB, where Tallow Oil struck oil in March last year. Joseph Bonyo, KTN Business Today.
Here's how your money performed in the financial markets review. And welcome to the sports. Tusker Kenya Premier League debutants Kakamega Homeboys, who recently completed the recruitment of 12 players, say their newcomers' tag will not be felt in the field of play when the season starts. Technical Director Jared Ngutia told KTN in Kakamega this morning that their signings, most of whom have been regulars in the Premier League, will offer quality opposition.
Qualifying for the Premier League is just but one of the journey to making a name in the soccer scene in the country. That is a fact that debutants to the country's biggest soccer stage, Kakamega Homeboys, will soon realize. Technical Director Jared Ngutia says the players who joined the club from other established clubs and those who began the journey to the top have the pedigree to offer quality competition. Oserian, Western Stima, Muhoroni Youth and Thika United are the clubs that fed the league newcomers with players. 5 players from Flowerman Oserian found greener pastures at the Kakamega outfit.
Tunatarajia ikiwa Mwenyezi Mungu atakuwa pamoja na sisi, tunatarajia tumalize kati ya zile top 8.
They are now organizing a friendly match with a yet to be identified Kenya Premier League club to gauge the preparedness of the players.
Tuko tayari kukabiliana na timu yoyote ile itakuja mbele yetu.
Homeboys will play their first match against the AFC Leopards on the first day of the season. Joshua Kemboy, KTN News Night Sport.
Organizers of the annual Premier Golf event have organized a tournament where golfers seeking to compete in this year's edition but have not qualified will seek their qualification. The tournament is planned for February the 7th and the 8th at the Karen Golf Club. Now, those seeking to participate must be seconded by their respective professional golf associations. Now, those who finish among the top 5 after the 2 rounds will get direct entry to the 2013 Barclays Kenya Open. In the event of a tie, then the tie will be decided by a countback first over the 2 days. Then if there is a tie, then on the scores of the last day, as per the normal countback rules, will take place. Entries close on Wednesday the 6th of February at 12 noon Kenya time. A strong contingent of 20 amateur golfers drawn from a mix of local golf clubs have been picked to feature in the Kenya Open tourney in the next fortnight.
Nothing rewards like a Guinness. Guinness, reach for greatness.
Weather forecast brought to you by Motin Doom Power Guard.
ultimate cockroach killer.
We're just about to wind up the election center, but first I want to recap a story that formed the basis of our big question tonight. Remember, 3 civilians were killed Sunday night, 4 policemen gunned down in Baringo. And off the back of that, we asked you whether the government is committed to ending cattle rustling. This is how you polled in, with 96% of you saying no, only 4% saying yes. Certainly, insecurity remains a major challenge in this country, and that sort of theft compounding the problem. We'll have it covered on the election center in the coming days. Tomorrow, you do not want to miss our coverage on the election center. We will be in Kisumu and in the heart of the capital, Nairobi. So please do keep it on KTN. This is your authoritative and independent election station. I am Ann Kiguta, and on behalf of all our teams across the country, have a very good night. We'll see you tomorrow.